An AEW star was possibly injured on Dynamite last night. New AEW champions were also crowned on Dynamite, and a WWE star has pitched some extreme creative. Stay tuned for the news. Well, last night's Dynamite seems to have been quite a big show. There was a lot of things happened, a lot of development, and a lot of sort of ramifications for future storylines. But one of the sort of main talking points coming out of it was a match between the Bunny and Jamie Hayter, and it seems to be there's a little bit of concern there.
Little bit of concern. So this is the championship contenders match. Basically, if the Bunny beat Jamie Hayter, Bunny would get a title shot. What happened was, and it came back from break, and the match ended very abruptly. We saw a T-bone from Jamie Hayter. Fine. Yep. A second one, there was a bit of a malfunction at the junction because the Bunny didn't quite go over the way she was meant to, and they kind of both crashed down onto Bunny's head. Yeah. It looked really ugly. Moments later, the match wrapped up with the Haterade.
The Haterade.
And the 3 count went down. It's a great name, isn't it?
Haterade.
And big shout out to whoever bought the Haterade is my pre-workout sign with the Gatorade logo.
It's better than Prime, that's for sure. It's better than Prime. But the reports say that doctors checked on Bunny at ringside after the match, which obviously wasn't shown on camera, leading many to possibly think that it's not a work and it is a legitimate
because
injury.
They'd done a bit with Takeshita where he got injured and it was like, oh, let's just stare at the medical people staring at Takeshita, and they didn't do that here, which is made people suggest now it might be a case of it was just a concern for injury because the landing was so rough. They thought they'd go to the finish. Obviously, I mean, the other school of thought is if there's a potential head injury, maybe hitting a ripcord lariat isn't the way to go.
Isn't the way to go.
I mean, it depends. It's the heat of the moment thing, but I guess it just felt like the ending happened very suddenly.
Yeah, I mean, it's even if the smallest risk of injury and they think, right, we need to sort of finish this as soon as possible, that could have been the way they went with it. Really hope the Bunny's all right. Yeah. You know, seems to be on a bit of a roll recently, getting a bit of momentum behind her. Let's hope that it sort of doesn't get cut off by this in a legitimate injury. Now, the other major talking point from AEW...
The other injury is our hearts, mate.
Oh, my God.
Jeebus.
So it was the Guns versus the Acclaimed, and the Guns got the scissors out and cut through the Acclaimed's title reign. I'm gutted. I am gutted, Tom. It was a big-time match. The Acclaimed have been on quite a roll. They've been the champions for a couple of months now. And then during the match last night, Billy Gunn teased turning on the Acclaimed a little bit.
That was in the back of our mind, Palaces, going into that anyway. You know, is he going to choose his adopted children over his biological children or otherwise? And
the way it was framed and the way he was moving seemed very much to indicate that he was going to turn on them. And I think it was very intentionally done because, as you said, we're all thinking about it. That was probably the most likely scenario if it was going to happen. He lifts Bowens to his feet. Colton is setting up to hit him with a belt. And he moves Bowens out of the way. He metaphorically takes the bullet from the gun for Anthony Bowens.
That's good. What a pro. Yeah. However, just when we thought things were getting back to normal, getting the match getting back into the running of things, Bowens ended up getting a belt shot to the face anyway, a schoolboy roll-up, and suddenly the Guns are tag team champions.
Now, it's quite a big year for the Ass Boys. They've done really well. They've got a win over FTR recently. Now they're tag team champions. It looks like they're on the up and up.
I feel like this is a bit of a make good for the Guns because Billy Gunn with the Acclaimed was such a popular act, and the Guns, who were kind of part of who were Billy's boys coming in, just kind of got lost in the shuffle, put out into the periphery, became the butt of the joke. So I feel like this is a chance to sort of legitimize them a little bit. And I mean, a lot of people think this has come very soon and very suddenly for the Guns, but it's a story. It's kind of a story that they're telling. Yeah. So I can't see the Guns having a long run with the titles. I feel like this gives us a rematch at Revolution.
Exactly that.
We can have some fun with that.
I think that's where it will lead. Revolution gives the Acclaim the chase to the belts again because they were really, really over in that, and then they can sort of maybe do more teases with Billy Gunn and being like, oh, he's so torn. His sons are the champions, but his adopted sons were great champions, and they shouldn't have lost here because they cheated. But the another major match going into Revolution was confirmed. So we've got possibly the Acclaimed versus the Guns, and then we've got, it's mouth-wateringly tasty. It's Bryan Danielson and MJF. What happened, Tom?
So as a result of beating Roosh and completing the obligated weeks of winning, Bryan Danielson will face MJF for the world title in an Iron Man match at Revolution. Now, MJF did everything to try and put the stoppers to Bryan Danielson getting the W here, even locking him in the trainer's room and trying to get Audrey to count
him out.
So Aubrey?
Aubrey.
I was thinking of Audrey Hepburn, who would also be a great referee. Excuse me. That's my reaction to
Audrey Hepburn is Breakfast at Tiffany's. And
I love Breakfast and Tiffany's and Paris when it's burning.
Yeah.
So it was an attempt by MJF to stop the rot. It didn't work. MJF got a bit of a one-up on Bryan Danielson by the end of the night, though. Iron Man match at Revolution, based on how AEW pay-per-views tend to go. This pay-per-view will probably go 9 days long. If Tony can resist putting on 12 matches and then an Iron Man match, we might get to bed by Christmas.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be a long one. This will be going all the way till WrestleMania. But coming up on this week's AEW Rampage, it was confirmed that Mark Briscoe will make an appearance on the show tomorrow night. However, Mark's appearance didn't appear in front of the live crowd.
No, it was taped. So the live crowd got all the Rampage stuff already because Rampage was taped after Dynamite. But the bit with Mark Briscoe was a bit in the can, so we'll have to find out on Friday what he says. I would assume it's an update on the status of the ROH World Tag Titles since the passing of Jay. Maybe something to do with plans for him in AEW or Ring of Honor going forward. We'll find out tomorrow night.
Really hope we see Mark Briscoe back. I think he did. Obviously, it's been very tragic what's happened, and he came on to AEW and he's been allowed by Warner Brothers Discovery to appear on the show and all that sort of stuff. He gave one hell of a performance the other week, and you could see the crowd support behind him. It'd be great to have him be a full-fledged force in the company. But we also now have an update on Jerry the King Lawler. Now, we covered recently he suffered a stroke and he's been in hospital with a medical emergency. Well, from an update from Jerry's official Twitter, it says, update on Jerry. After suffering a massive stroke Monday, he is now recovering in Fort Myers, Florida hospital. His speech is limited, but with rehabilitation will regain a full recovery. He thanks everyone for the continued prayers and will be back in the near future. Yeah, this was accompanied with some photos of him and Jimmy Hart.
Which is just what you need when you're in hospital.
Yeah, I mean, there was some very nice photos. Jerry looks in good spirits, all things considered. He looked. It's strange that healthy considering what has just happened. He was sitting up and he was looking positive, which is great to hear.
Yeah, best wishes going forward to Jerry Lawler.
Now we're going to look at a little bit about SmackDown. So this is a story that actually really surprised me. Liv Morgan has kind of pitched some interesting creative backstage, and she's spoken a little bit about it on Ryan Satin's podcast. And she noticed during her most recent run, she got a little bit more hardcore.
She did, and I really enjoyed it. I think that it was the story that bled off from Ronda Rousey saying oh, you're not tough enough to be in the ring with me, and then it led to her doing table spots and leaping off the top onto the floor and stuff like that. Turns out this is Liv Morgan's sort of thing.
She kind of likes it.
C'est raison d'être. She said that's the reason I fell in love with WWE. I was 5 years old. It wasn't the great stories that got me. It was the extreme. It was the TLC matches. It was the hardcore matches. Fast forward, being able to live out this crazy extreme fantasy that I've always had, it feels so fitting and full circle. I wouldn't want to do anything else right now, and I'm excited to see where I go, and I can take it. Now, Satin talked about potentially some more rougher matches than WWE would do, something beyond Extreme Rules. And she said, if I was able to say the things that I've pitched that they turned down, she's been throwing at WWE by all accounts.
Exploding barbed wire matches, all sorts of that's speculation. But all sorts of massive things.
What she goes on to say as well is suggests that she was pitching for fire table spots, thumbtack spots. If Liv Morgan gets that creative freedom, potentially we could see her just throwing it out there in hardcore matches for months and months to come. I
mean, if she's up for it, go for it. I think she's really improved over the past few years, and if this could be the thing that solidifies her as a sort of I don't want to say a unique act because that's not fair, but be oh, that's Liv, that's her staple. She's there. She knows exactly what the character is, and she can produce some really fantastic matches. Like she says, it might get a whole new audience into it by going, oh, I like the extreme, I like the TLC stuff. Liv Morgan's my person for that. Kind of like how Edge and Christian and the Hardys and Team 3D, the Dudley Boys were back in the day. Show my age, they're Team 3D.
Yeah, you old man.
Yeah, I'd love a bit of TNA. But yeah, so hopefully we'll see some of that creative maybe come to fruition. I would really like it anyway. We'd see some Liv Morgan stuff. Extreme Rules is a couple months away. Maybe we'll see it then.
Is it a couple months away?
They move it around. all the time.
Yeah,
It could be May, it could be October. We don't really know.
It turns up like my Auntie Belinda.
Yeah. Well, that is all the news we have for Video 1. We will be back later on with some more wrestling news. Have you got anything you want to plug, Tom? Maybe your morning news podcast?
Fraser likes TNA, pass it on.
Yeah.